What's up, gamers? Look, okay, before you say anything, yes, this is what happens when my teammates pick Charmander, Gardevoir, Greninja, and Larvitar all on the same team, all in lane in the same game, okay? I molded one too many times. Some of my hair fell out. That's how it be. Anyways, so I wanted to make a video about 3 of the most common mistakes that I see in Pokemon Unite. These tips are useful at any level of the game, whether you play casual just a couple games a day or you're sweaty tryhard like me and basically all you do is eat, sleep, play Pokemon Unite, and then run it again for an entire year. Maybe you just need to be reminded every once in a while. I hope you enjoyed the video, and be sure to check out my Twitch where all the gameplay comes from. Subscribe so you don't miss out on the next video. If this video gets to 25 likes, we'll post another tomorrow. Okay, so first off, the thing that I see the most that people do in Pokemon Unite is struggle with overextending, especially because stacking items in Pokemon Unite are insanely broken. Special attack specs, AO's cookie, and attack weight are viable on almost any Pokemon in the game. Not necessarily all 3 of them, but at least one of them is viable on almost every single mon in the game. Because of how strong they are, this leads to an increase of people who are extending super far early game and attempt to get stacks early that maybe are new to stacking or haven't quite mastered it yet, which really puts them in a bad spot. Trading your life for one single stack is never going to be worth it, but I see it all the time. If you die trying to stack, that instantly puts your lane partner in a terrible position. Now the enemy team is going to be able to advance on your side of the lane, bully your partner back, and steal your team's farm. All of this happens while you're respawning, and there's nothing you can do about it because you died, fed XP to the other team, and then gave up the entire bottom lane for at least 10 seconds while you're respawning. All you can do is really just clench your butt cheeks and hope that somehow you're going to be able to get back into the game later. Now that your team has 2 level 4s, facing on 2 level 6s 1 minute into the game on the bottom lane. This not only puts your lane super far behind, but it makes it incredibly hard to win the first objective with such a level disparity. Even an overleveled Eldegoss is going to have a way bigger impact than a level 5 Charmander or Cinderace rotating for the first Reggie. This makes the early game fight super hard to win, even if your top lane has been even with their top lane and your jungler is up there. Because now you send 2 overleveled laners that are going to be able to overwhelm your top laner and your jungler. Overextending is not an issue only in the early game, but it carries on throughout the entire game as a whole, which is why I say it's one of the biggest problems because it can happen at any point. The next most obvious time to get punished for overextending is at the Rayquaza fight, which counts from about the last 2.5 minutes of a game. One of the most common ways somebody is able to come back into the game from an absolute stomp is by catching a player from the winning team out right before the 2-minute mark and putting them on a huge timer. Obviously, if you're even, behind, or winning, you need to be careful of overextending yourself, but it's more common to lose to an overextension when winning because it'll be on such a long timer. And I see this all the time on Twitter. You'll see a Greninja post, they got 35 kills in a game, but then they lost. And I've won a game where the opposing Greninja, Big Uzi, stop bullying me, it's literally mean, let me have fun on the ladder, will drop something like 25 or 30 kills on us, but then they lose the game. In one particular game, I played against Big Uzi, literally dropped 28 kills on us. But obviously, the game plan from there is, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to do everything we can to take this guy out first. One tiny level overextension, and he catches 2 ults and dies. And I remember exactly, he was on a 43-second timer, which meant their team was lacking the entirety of the DPS. And we were able to secure the Rayquaza, kill their team, and get dunks in, which means we won. It doesn't mean we were the better players. It means we were able to find our win condition and execute it. And sometimes that's just how it is. The next biggest thing I see people struggle with is their Unite move management. Your Unite move is effectively a move that, for a safe bet, takes around 2 minutes to charge just on a cooldown. You don't want to just throw it away to try and get 1 kill, or just save it every fight to try to last hit in objectives. I'm looking at Cinderace mains here, okay? Look, I know, man. I'm a Redditor. Trust me, dude. I know how juicy it is to try to 1v5 steal the objective. It's very cool. And you can go on Twitter and post your clip. I get it. It's fine. But for real, though, one of the most common things I see is somebody using their Unite move simply to save themselves or get 1 single kill at a time in a game where there's no objectives up. This effectively has no impact on the game whatsoever, other than now your team's down a Unite move with the next objective. And as an ADC, I kind of like to wander alone, which, you know, talking about overextending, I get punished for a lot. But I see it all the time where a support or a tank is going to try to use a Unite to kill a jungler with no objective up. Even if they do kill me, like, sure, now your tank gains a level and a half. That's a decent enough trade, because I knew at the next objective, they won't have their Unite move, which means there's 1 less thing we have to play around. And 95% of the time, it's not going to be worth trading it for a single kill. The 5% is if you can kill an enemy that's several levels higher than you, which would in turn give you about 2 levels of catch-up XP. I don't hate trading a Unite move for a character who's 3 levels above you. That's not terrible, as long as you're not doing it within the 3 minutes and 45 seconds mark. Which brings me to my next point of your Unite move management. A simple blanket rule to follow is never ult within the 330 to 220 mark. Now, different characters and amp and everything can change this, but if you don't ult between those times, your team is going to win more games than if you're just throwing your ult randomly or you're ulting within that window. Showing up to the Rayquaza fight without your Unite move is one of the biggest throws you can make without straight up leaving the game or running it down intentionally. Unite moves are insanely strong no matter which character it is. The offering of high burst damage, a lot of CC, or healing is something your team likely will need to win in a fight. If two teams are perfectly even on levels and all 5 players show up to the fight, no one with 5 Unites is going to beat the one that has 4 the vast majority of the time, just because of how powerful they are. Using your Unite move early puts the other team in the driver's seat. If they know that someone in your team ulted at 3:15, they know you'll be down a Unite move with a 2-minute mark. This allows them to start ripping or force a fast fight knowing your team will be at a disadvantage. On the same token, if you're stuck farming your ult because you used it a little late, looking at the 3-minute mark or so, your team is not only down a Unite move, but you're effectively down an entire player if you're off farming your ult rather than being present at the most important fight of the entire game. Rayquaza can be the cause of several hundred points scored, so it's not worth it to try to ult to secure 1 or 2 kills if the enemy's just going to be able to respawn with plenty of time and hold their Unites. The third thing that I see cost people a ton of games is failure to track the score. This can have an impact on the game in more ways than one. It's super important to pay attention to the score prompts that come up, especially at the 2-minute and 1-minute marks. Before that, it doesn't matter nearly as much because you can gauge based on the goal zones, and Rayquaza's up, so anything can happen. Before we even get into how to play each scenario, it's important to first talk about what each prompt means so that you know exactly how to play it. If the prompt says it's a close battle, it means that both teams are within 20 points of each other. Something as simple as overcaps can make this difference, which is why it's important to try to get large overdunks. I'm not saying you need to remember exactly how many overcap points you have, but it's important to at least make a mental note if either team has a super big or super small overcap on one of their tier 1 goal zones. The vast majority of the time, the tier 2 goal zones won't be broken before the last 2 minutes, so it's a lot easier to track those overcaps. If the score prompt says we're in the lead, your team has a lead of 21 to 99 points. If it says we have a huge lead, your team has a lead of over 100 points. This can be estimated by goals remaining and also tracking the amount of home base, which should be super easy because they rarely happen. On the flip side, we're struggling to keep up means you're losing by 21 to 99, and we're really struggling means we're losing by over 100. Like I said, one of the most common ways people lose is by failing to track the score accurately because they don't pay enough attention to the prompts and they don't calculate just how much they need to defend. The easiest way to lose a game you have complete control over is to go guard a tier 3 tower when you have more than a 100-point lead. Tier 3 towers give very little healing, and assuming you're defending a last push from the other team after you've won Ray and dunked a couple 100 points and recalling, there's no reason to guard the outside base if you have over a 100-point lead. The enemy team has all died and likely taken farm on the way back to your base, which means they get ult charge from dying and from the farm. Likely at least one of them is going to have their ult, while your team is now behind on ult charge, although in a defensive position. By defending the tier 3 base, take away your strong positioning and put yourself at a disadvantage trying to fight an uphill battle. It's much better to let the tier 3 go down and prepare to defend the tier 2, especially if you see all the enemies pushing that tier 3, which they likely will do, and it's generally a smart play to do. By letting even a dunk of 100 in, you know that you're still winning, assuming you had a huge lead going into this. You have a much higher healing base to dig into. On top of this, if you get low, you can run right back to the home base and launch pad into the fight. This allows you to disrupt active dunks and attacks from the enemy that provides a small stun, which positions your team very well in this fight. The launch pad, which a lot of people don't think about, is effectively an AoE stun that hits all 5 enemies on the pad. So using this to your advantage can really swing a fight in your favor. That's it. That's my 3 biggest things I think players of all ranks need to be aware of in order to win more games. I really hope you enjoyed. Remember, 25 likes and I'll post another video tomorrow giving an extra video this week. Thanks for watching. Be sure to give me your take in the comments, subscribe, and check me out on Twitch.